audience capture becomes so much harder. I feel that shit every day I write something on X. The algorithm is programming you. Oh, that one went well? Try it again. Try it with a slight twist. Try upping it a little bit. Try making it a little more antagonistic. Try making it a little more spicy. All of these things have this ability to kind of suck that authenticity out of you and turn it into something bizarre.
Basically, marketing is a transfer of enthusiasm. It could be negative enthusiasm, like I'm against this or I'm for whatever it is, but it's a transfer of that. And people are pumped about it because David's pumped about it. And when David's pumped about it, you're like, well, what the fuck is going on over here? This must be interesting.
It's a form of lying when you're writing for instrumentality, when you're writing to juice some numbers, when you're writing to move the score. No. You got it backwards. You got to write because you care. You got to write because you're excited about something. And you damn well better care and be excited about something if you're building something. Because if you don't care, if you're not excited, who the hell is going to be?
Welcome to REWORK, a podcast by 37 Signals about the better way to work and run your business. I'm Kimberly Rhodes, joined as always by the co-founders of 37 Signals, Jason Fried and David Heinemeier Hansson. This week, I thought we would address a question that we get quite often, people writing in, sending in videos, asking how they can promote their product. They know that the 37 Signals story started with a blog, but they're curious what they should be doing. So let's first, before we kind of dive into some of this advice, Jason, take us back to the early beginnings of the Signal versus Noise blog. I assume that was just something you created because you wanted to communicate, not necessarily as like a marketing tool.
Yeah, it was actually funny. We were sitting in our office in Chicago, our original office. Actually, not our original, our second office in Chicago. A few of us, is me, Ernest, and I think Matt or something like that. And we'd been like sharing links to things back and forth and like thoughts. Like I think we're using AOL Instant Messenger or whatever the hell was going on back then. I don't know, some sort of Skype or something. I don't know what it was. And we're just like, we should just like put this down somewhere because it'd be easier to like publish it or something like that. And we're like, we're sharing these things. There's probably other people who are interested in sharing these kinds of or seeing these things or talking about the same things that we're talking about. We're just three guys who are doing this thing and like this stuff. And so we just kind of put together a very basic blog, which is a really early days, which is just, a way to publish stuff. We used Gray Matter, I think was the first tool we used by this guy named Noah Gray, I think was his name, who made this great blogging CMS thing, blogging thing, put that together and just like put it out there. And like the idea was like maybe other people might want to hear this music we're playing, basically somewhere in the world, maybe. And it wasn't like we're going to do this so we can do this, and this is going to be this, and this is going to be this, and it's going to lead to this, and we can do that. We're just sharing stuff, that we're sharing already. So we're kind of documenting what we're already doing. And it just sort of grew from there. We eventually switched to movable type, but it doesn't matter. That's all back-end stuff. It doesn't really matter. But we just started sharing as often as we could. As often as we had an idea internally, we just put it externally. And that's how it grew. And that's how all the early blogs kind of grew. The links and ideas and thoughts and whatever. And again, no anticipation of what this could turn into or what it's for. It was for nothing other than just sharing stuff we thought was interesting. And eventually you build up a small audience, and some people pay attention. Then maybe you turn on comments and you start to build a community at that point. So there's like attention comes, then you can add community to that to some degree. Then you have like regulars. It's just like kind of a restaurant or a bar, kind of thing. And you start to develop that kind of thing where we have 100 people. Like I know their handle and they're coming back every day, and you build this thing and more people join and some people leave. And then eventually like David finds us, and that's sort of kind of how that kind of thing happened. But the most important thing I want to say is there's not intention behind it beyond an interest in just putting stuff out there. I think if we would have attached or hooked too many things we hope it would be to it, it wouldn't have been any of those things.
I think the fact is that people can smell inauthenticity a million miles away. And if you're setting up your writing, anything you're sharing online with the outcome in mind first, like the reason I do this is because I want to move this lever, I want to move this number in so and so ways, it's going to leak. Like it's like these micro twitches that your face does when you're fucking lying. And that's what that is. It's a form of lying when you're writing for instrumentality, when you're writing to juice some numbers, when you're writing to move the score. No. You got it backwards. You got to write because you care. You got to write because you're excited about something. And you damn well better care and be excited about something if you're building something. Because if you don't care, if you're not excited, who the hell is going to be? So you have to tap into that authentic reasoning for why you're doing what you do. Why are you selling this thing? Why are you making this thing? There's damn well better be a purpose that isn't just like, well, I thought I saw an opportunity to make some money. Then you better have a bunch of money and you better blow it all on advertisement and have someone else dress up and tell people why they should care about your thing, because you won't be able to do it. To be able to do it, you have to have authenticity. And in authenticity, there's also this built-in patience. And I think that's really key. As Jason said, we've been writing online since 99. Jason was writing the blog before I even joined up for a few years, and it built slowly. It wasn't just like tap, 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 and now we have 100,000 followers and you can blast out anything to them. That's just not how these things go. They do grow slowly, and then suddenly they grow quickly. I started writing on Hey World 4 years ago, I think it was. And I got to see what starting from scratch is like, because I had to build that list, a mailing list essentially, from zero to something. And I made the mistake in the early days of writing this. I was, I don't know, 20 essays in. I started looking at the numbers a little bit. I was like, Jesus, I have barely any followers. Like, no one cares. And I did that once and I did that twice. And I went like, you know what? I'm just not going to look at this again. In fact, we changed the product after I had that revelation that now if you go into Hey World and you look at your writing interface, it doesn't tell you how many people are reading. You kind of have to dig for it because you don't want to see, because in the beginning, it's always disappointing. You always have no one giving a damn. You're writing for yourself, for your love of sharing. And then eventually, if you're good at it and you're excited about it, people will start caring in most cases, not in all, but in most cases. You don't know when that's going to happen. Now I've written, I think I'm close to like 500 essays over the last 4 years in that damn blog. And now there's a following, and I can publish something and a fair number of people see it. And that was essentially starting from scratch again. And it happens every single time Jason or I go onto a new platform. Of course, there's a little bit of a flywheel effect, and you have some followers from over here and some followers from over there, and some of them jump over. But you know what? A lot of it, no. A lot of it's just to grind again. You start from zero, and then you got to build it back up. And the only way to get through that is this authentic yearning to just talk about what you're doing. And I think that's the other thing that I found makes it so much easier, is if you stop setting the goalposts of like, I'm doing this because I got to promote the business, because I got to grow it, to I'm just going to talk about what interests me. I'm going to write to me. I'm going to write to me as though I was a reader. And if I was watching someone else, this is kind of what I would want to know. Then it's a lot easier. It's kind of like a journal. You stop caring so much about those specific outcomes, and suddenly it starts feeling like there's a human on the other side. And that is probably the only way you're going to connect to anyone these days if you're not shoving it down their throat with ads.
And I'm going to add too, because what David mentioned was great. This idea about starting with zero and looking at numbers. I actually wrote a bit about this. I don't know, a few years ago. I wrote, maybe it was like 8 years ago. I don't even know how long things are anymore ago. But about how it was actually an advantage to us to not have counts in the early days. Like, I didn't know how many people were reading our thing. I had no damn idea. There was some analytics thing, maybe sort of. We didn't have anything installed. It didn't even matter. And it was better that we didn't know. What we actually knew was a feeling of, oh, there's some people I've seen here before in the comments specifically. Oh, I know that person. Don Shank was a guy who used to like comment all the time, and he would comment all the time. And like, oh, there's Don again. And there's this other person again. There's this other person again. And like, there could have been 6 people, but there was like a little community going. And like, it was cool to know that there was these regulars, that there were regulars. That was like actually enough for me to like give me the hook and enthusiasm to some degree to like, I was going to keep writing anyway, but that was enough. It wasn't like that there was 400 anonymous people or 16,000 anonymous. It was like, these 6 people keep coming back. This is cool. We got a little thing going here. And that was good, but it wasn't a count. It was a noticing. I just noticed the people are paying attention, and that was enough.
And what's such a blessing about that setup is that audience capture becomes so much harder. I feel that shit every day I write something on X. That the stuff that does well, the algorithm is programming you. Oh, that one went well. Try it again. Try it with a slight twist. Try upping it a little bit. Try making it a little more antagonistic. Try making it a little more spicy. All of these things have this ability to kind of suck that authenticity out of you and turn it into something bizarre. And I think X in particular, and these kinds of social medias where you get the instant, I was about to say gratification, but I think that's too positive of a word. It's not actually gratification. It's instant sort of sucking your soul out because you see right now, is this hitting with someone else who will read it literally seconds later? It is just hacking into our dopamine systems and just go like constantly. This is how people get addicted to this stuff, right? And when they get addicted, they start changing themselves to what the algorithm is asking of them. And it does not take long before, I'm just going to speak for me, you can't recognize yourself. Like I've certainly been in these loops where hey, there's a vein here. There's gold in this mountain right here. Let's go digging. Let's go find another take on it. And by the time you've gone back to that mountain for like the eighth time, you go like, what am I doing? Why do I have a pickaxe in my hand? And why am I just like going at this attention thing all the time? It's not a very pleasurable way of doing it, which is actually why for me, I enjoyed the long form stuff, the old school stuff, the mailing list stuff. The if I'm going to hear from someone, if it resonates or not, it's because I'm going to get a goddamn reply. Someone's going to hit Control R on that email and start typing. And you know what? Out of whatever thousands of readers, only a small number of people will hit Control R, and they will actually think for a goddamn minute about what they're posting back. And I will think about what they're saying, and it's a conversation. I just yesterday I had a conversation with 7 readers. 7, right? I posted something to X. Thousands of people see it, and we have all these fast, cheap, kind of empty exchanges. But the 7 exchanges I had with someone over email, oh man, I remember that. I remember now the Don Shanks. I have a couple of Don Shanks in my list, right? I have regulars who will write me, if not on everything I post, then on every third thing I post. And it's kind of endearing that you develop these very human relationships versus the X stuff, the social media instant gratification. It's very inhuman. Anyway, I mean, we're not really selling it that well as like, how do you grow your business with your marketing stuff? But I think the truth is still the same. That the what works the best is the human stuff. That's even what pulls on X. There's a lot of corrupting forces, and you got to be careful with those things. But it's still what you have to put out there for it to resonate. And I also think what's actually interesting is that the strategy, if you even want to call it that, I don't want to call it that because, as Jason mentioned, that was not why these things started. They didn't start as a strategy. It gets even worse when you start adding other words to that. By the way, content strategy, engagement strategy. Actually, any word you put strategy behind instantly becomes bullshit. So that's just a good kind of feedback loop for you to like, if you say strategy next to another word, you are deep into MBA bullshit and you should just take 2 steps back. No, we're not doing content strategy. I'm going to share what I learned. I'm going to share what I'm excited about, and we're going to see where that goes. Can we, let's just do that, right? But I think the problem, the energy behind the question, it has a hard time to allow for that, right? Because for a lot of people, maybe it doesn't come as natural. Like they have to force themselves to do this a little bit. And you know what? Okay, then force yourself a little bit. I write stuff all the time where I'm like, I'm not forcing myself to do it, but do you know what? I like to exercise the muscles of the writing, and not everything's going to be a viral hit. Sometimes you got to put in some base hits, and also got to just think that those base hits got to sustain, and you can't just do it for 3 months. It's funny because Jason and I very often talk about marketing and how hard it is to sustain the stamina to do something. Like, let's put a lot of money behind these ads or buy more billboards, and then we get queasy pretty quick when we don't see the results. And somehow this stuff exists in another category where like we'll spend lots of time writing or sharing or engaging and not seeing the immediate feedback, but still going like, well, do you know what? The net sum of whatever it is, 25 years in business. We are where we are today because we did that.
Okay, so David, you mentioned the word patience. So I'm curious from both of you guys, do you think this is all just an exercise in patience? I think when people are writing in asking like, what are your tips? How do I get attention? Our answer is like, well, we did it over 20 years. Is there an element of patience that people are missing as they're trying to get things out into the world?
Do you know what? It's one of those things where it's both at the same time. You both have to have the patience that the results may take a while to show up, but you actually have to be desperately impatient to share what it is you want to share. Because that's the only way to tap into sort of that inspiration is perishable theme we have from REWORK. I think it's the last chapter of the book.
Yep.
That inspiration you have to make a point to share something lives in that moment. This is why I started writing so much more after we switched to Hey World Writing, where writing is just an email. I can literally go from like, oh, I have this idea floating around in my head to it is published to thousands of people in no time at all. Now, long form, it's very easy to send out a tweet, right? Like they're very empty. But can you string together 10 paragraphs and get that out there? A lot of folks treat that as like, well, that's a project. That's something we put on our, here's another bullshit word, content publishing schedule, right? Like, oh, this is something that goes out on, and I understand why people do it. I'm not fully poo-pooing on it, just a little bit, but I don't do it that way. And I think that you have to have that at the same time. You have to be impatient to share your ideas when they arrive in your head, because that's when you're going to capture the purest form of them. I remember reading this anecdote about musicians going into a studio to record a new thing. And they would just walk into the studio and they'd do like the first take. And then they'd do another 37 takes only to realize that the first take was the right one. That energy, that originality that arises when it's fresh and there, you can't capture it any other way. So if you try to put it back on the shelf, like I'm going to write on about this like 2 weeks from now, it's probably going to be stale. You're going to pull some stale bread, some stale ideas off the shelf. Better be super impatient, just going like this. Do you know what? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to follow up with another objection I often hear. It's like, I don't have time for that. You don't have time for what? You don't have time for sharing your ideas, showing enthusiasm to the market, getting potential customers excited for what it is that you have to do. What else do you have time for? If you don't have time for that, you have time to go to a bunch of fucking meetings. You have time to plan the Q3 reporting. You have time to talk about the roadmap for the next 18 months. You're an idiot. You have total time for this, and you should take time for this right now when it's there, not something else. It's literally the most important thing you could probably do if you're at the head. Your job is awareness, attention, inspiration, all of these things, right? Someone else can do the goddamn Q3 quarterly budget planning.
Okay, something I had in my notes, and David, that was a very lovely transition, which is building enthusiasm. I feel like, especially with this Omarchi things, Fizzy, Jason, on your end, like you guys are excited about the things that we're putting together, and it seems like you're excited to talk about them. Do you think that's an element of it as well, just building enthusiasm?
I think it has to be. I mean, David's particularly good at this, obviously. Basically, marketing is a transfer of enthusiasm. Really what it is.
That's a great way to say that.
I think that's the only thing that it is, actually. I mean, you could say, well, it's a brand value. It's a transfer of enthusiasm. And because it could be negative enthusiasm, like I'm against this or I'm for whatever it is, but it's a transfer of that. And it is infectious. And you're seeing it now with what David's doing with Omarchi. I mean, it's Omachi. It's is that how you pronounce it, by the way? Omachi? Omarchi? Yeah, whatever.
Or which way you like it.
Yeah. You can see the upswell of enthusiasm and people are pumped about it. And it's because David's pumped about it. And when David's pumped about it, you're like, well, what the fuck is going on over here? This must be interesting. And so people are open to checking it out and to trying it out and suffering through it and finding that they like it or they don't like it. But they're like, something's happening over here that's worth checking out.
Yeah.
That's purely enthusiasm and storytelling and stuff. But there's the enthusiasm behind it. They're like, this is interesting. This guy finds it interesting enough to be this interested about it. I'm at least going to give it a shot. And that's all you can ever ask for, is someone to go, yeah, I'll try that. Like, that's a victory right there. Not whether or not they're going to buy it or whatever, like, yeah, whatever. But like, just to get someone to try something that you're putting your energy and time into is huge. So I don't think there's any other way to do it. And by the way, you can do it like it's with advertising or there are other ways to build enthusiasm. You can tell a great story through ads, all that stuff. But I think at the root of it, it is the enthusiasm that shows through.
And I think it's turning more in that direction too. I think the traditional way of selling sort of a manufactured enthusiasm through very polished ads have never worked worse than they do today. Now, again, the top shelf stuff, that's always going to hit, right? Like that's always going to go through. If you just have just a banger of an ad and everyone is talking about it, great, wonderful. It's funny, whenever I say that, I think about these two Volvo ads. I think we've talked about them before, where the storytelling is just so uniquely awesome that I sat through a 4.5 minute ad for a car I normally would not be all that interested in. Like that, I'm not the target audience for that kind of car, but suddenly I became. Like that's marketing. That is top shelf marketing. You're making me the target audience for something I didn't think I was interested in. Now, the exciting thing about that is like that exists at all level. Like you have the Mr. Beasts of the world that are just at the very top, but it also works much lower down. We've talked about this guy before who makes the bags. Jason, remember what's his name again?
Dave from Saddleback Leather.
Saddleback Leather. He's
Dave
my other
Munson.
favorite example of this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I don't thought I had any enthusiasm for was fucking saddle bags. Like what? Like why would I care about this thing? And you sit down and you listen to a guy who is not only knowledgeable. This is the other thing that's important. You can manufacture fake enthusiasm. And that's, I think, everyone's sort of negative stereotype of an influencer that's just like all over the place and flying back and forth into the camera, right? And not saying anything, just trying to do this transfer of enthusiasm. But there's a fake way of doing that, right? Where like the enthusiasm is just 100% manufactured. You listen to this Saddleback guy and you go, this enthusiasm is based on knowledge and competence. The dude knows leather. And he knows how to turn leather into a bag. And that conveyance is just magnetic. I have this other guy on YouTube I've been following, Hippio Tech, who has like 1.5 million followers on YouTube. And all he does is review mechanical keyboards. First of all, when I realized that, what do you mean there's 1.5 million people who want to know about mechanical keyboards? Isn't that the most nerdy possible thing in the world? And you sit down and you listen to this guy and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know what thock was. I didn't know what clacky was. You're actually teaching me the terms of this thing and you're excited about it and it's a little bit fun and you clearly know something and you have opinions. There's things you like and there's things you don't like. And I ended up ordering goddamn 5 keyboards just based on this dude's recommendation. And I go like, you know what? I actually like this better. Again, I'm not someone who dislikes advertisement just sort of instinctively when it's sort of good and it's not targeted and all the other bullshit that we've talked about before. But this kind of stuff, whatever it is, it's the advertising effect is extremely more powerful on me than it is on with the other stuff. And it's just fun. I feel like I'm learning something. I'm leveling up my skills. Now I know a lot of things about leather bags I didn't know before, but mechanical keyboards. And I think that's what we've been doing for 20 years without having the categories to talk about in that way.
And I'm going to read you guys something that you wrote in REWORK that's very similar to this. In a chapter called Go Behind the Scenes, you guys write, letting people see you as human beings instead of a faceless company. They'll see the sweat and effort that goes into what you sell. They'll develop a deeper level of understanding and appreciation for what you do. I think that kind of summarizes this as well. What you guys have done with your blog posts and on X and all of these things is like really putting a personal face to a name, not just a generic message.
It's not just a face. It's also a willingness to share things that people didn't think could be shared. Jason and I both shared our earnings from the REWORK book, actually. We just got our, $27,000 check for the quarter, whatever the interval is from Writer's House on this book. And normally that feels like proprietary data. This is real numbers and it's showing accumulated earnings, and like you're not supposed to share that stuff. And it's funny because I noticed Jason had shared it afterwards. I think you might have shared it first. And we had the same instinct. This is interesting. I would love to see what an earnings slip looks like on another book. Therefore, some people might be interested in seeing what an earnings slip looks like on our book. Therefore, we should share it. And I think this is why the category sometimes, when it works the best, is called founder-led marketing. Because as founders, you don't have to ask anyone for permission. So you see something that's interesting, and the path from a slip here showing explicit earnings, that's interesting. And then sharing it is literally, I took a screenshot when that email arrived in my Hey box, and 22 seconds later, it was on LinkedIn and it was on X. I was like, this is just interesting. I should just share it. You do that 200 times a year, that accumulates. And now you're a person who shares interesting things. And you're a person who shares interesting things that perhaps is something that folks aren't going to find somewhere else. Boom. Folks pay attention.
Okay, let's not dive too much into that, because our next episode, we're going to talk all about the transparency you guys have had, sharing some things that people would think are a little bit private. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Rework is a production of 37 Signals. You can find show notes and transcripts on our website at 37signals.com/podcast. Full video episodes are on YouTube. And if you have a question for Jason or David about a better way to work and run your business, leave us a video question. You can do that at 37signals.com/podcast question. Welcome to REWORK. Oh.